If anyone has trouble hearing the audio or cannot see the screen, please use the chat or questions feature to let us know. And again, we want these to be as interactive as we can, so please submit any questions you have. Steve or myself, whoever's not speaking, will be monitoring the questions pane and can get answers when applicable there. Today we're talking about reports, and reports can be a number of things in USGA TM. That could be a scorecard, it could be a cart sign, it could be a scoreboard, a scoring report, and we're going to take you through some basics on those, create a couple from scratch, and show you some best practices, and also look at how we can search the community of reports to find existing ones that may fit our needs right away without having to spend the time to design one. So what I'm going to do to lead us off here is take us through a scorecard and create one from scratch and just show some of the features available. I'm in a test event, a round robin league we created recently, and if you'll see, if we go under the rounds menu, there's the report center under profile and reports on the right side. That's where we'll go to start any reporting work we're doing. You can see we have our categories here: reports, spreadsheets, outings. We can create new categories, we can organize these a little differently, but for this purposes, I'm just going to show us how to create one from scratch. There's the new document option here, and you see we have a report, a page, a spreadsheet, a scorecard, or a publisher scoreboard. I'm going to go to the scorecard here. This event has some rounds and pairings already in it, so that's a nice one. I know I can create a scoreboard or a scorecard for this because we've already created those. I'll call it webinar test, and I'm going to put it into this event folder. We'll show you a little bit later how that applies. I'll just name it, I'll hit save. And as I go to the next page here, you'll see this is starting. This is my 4 pairing groups for this event. We have tee times here. They're all off the first tee. The tournament is selected. The tournament is important here because that will show what dotting is applied, what handicap allowances are applied. In this case, I've got this was a weekly 10-point match. We'll go ahead and use that one here, and we'll see how that appears. You can also, so then you go to the format tab here, and what this format tab shows you is a few different options here for, portrait or landscape, 18-hole card or 9-hole card, print 1 or 2 scorecards per page, show every player, show both players and teams. You can see if we did 1 scorecard per page or 2, it would change the page size. If we did 1 player per scorecard or all players. In this case, this is a league that's 9 holes. You can see these dots here in this example. We always see the little example here. The dots aren't shown on the back nines because it's a 9-hole event. So I'm actually going to select a 9-hole card here, and you'll see that stretches it out to fit there. If you scroll down, there's also a preview that you can refresh at any time as you make changes to show you what the real example would look like for up to the first 5 pairing groups. You see here we could create a vertical fold space. So a lot of options there of how you want this to appear. We can go to the next one. I'm just working my way from left to right across the top there. Handicap stroking. Again, do I want the dots to appear on the card or not? Do I want the playing handicap to appear, or do I want the course handicap to appear as well? So in this case, it's showing 5/4, 4/3, 10/8. We're at an 80% allowance here, or whatever it may be. It's showing the before and after, and where the strokes come out to with the 9-hole match. So everything is displayed there, but you do control all of that information. Additional info and tees. This is where you can start to customize a little more. And I'd like to add in some nice features to cards if we have an event that I want to put some other information on. For example, here, if I wanted to add another scorecard row, I could simply hit this button here to add scorecard row. That gives me an optional text row. And let's just say this was a team event. It was 2 better balls of 4. I could put that there, and we could have an extra line there where the team could put their team score in at the bottom, and you'll see it puts the boxes in for all the other holes everywhere going across. I could include the slashes on each hole box if I wanted to. We could print blinds if we had any blinds in the competition. If there was a shotgun, I could highlight the starting hole easily. So a lot of easy features to add in here just with the click of a button. As we move forward, fonts and colors, this is where you can even get a little more creative. Actually, I'm going to look back here and show you one thing too. If you see the preview here, if I hit refresh preview just to show you what I was talking about earlier, we will be able to show the pairing group previews for up to 5 pairing groups. And you see the 2 better ball 4 line is on there now, and it fits nicely within there. So every time we make a change, we can run a preview and see that. Now, if I go to fonts and colors, I can do a lot of different things here. And really whatever I want to add in here. I could go through and say, okay, you know what? I want to highlight specific boxes here, and I want to shade them because we're going to put in that there is a beverage service on a specific hole. So I'm going to pick hole number 4 here, and I'm going to go to background and pick yellow. And I'm going to say, all right, well, we want people to know that. And I'm going to put a note in about that later. And if I go to header footer here, this is where you can start to customize other things here. What else do we want to put in here? Let's just say I want to put a primary logo in. I'm going to put that over here. You can just simply click and drag that around. You can make it bigger or smaller. And again, if I refresh the preview, I'll see what that looks like, what the shape is, what the color is. And see, I've got a Gap logo in there. This event, the primary logo that's uploaded was a Gap logo. You'll see we have that yellow highlighting around number 4 too. So let's add some text fields. Let's just say I want to add in the event information. I can scroll through here, I can search, or I can just type in event name. And then I want to put the round date. So if I go to date and type that in, and you'll see there's some player fields here, or there's some event related fields. One of these is the round date. And that's bringing them in at a basic font size. I'm going to make them a little bigger. I'll click on the fonts. I'll make it a size of 20. And I'll hit apply. And what this does is this puts it in here. You'll see this 1 and 2 at the top. I can then take this and drag this wherever I want to. Say I want to put it right here. And look again how the refresh is beneficial here for me, because I did not make this a bigger text field. I just kept the line there. You see round robin league kind of got cut off a little bit there. I'd like that all to be together. So I can go to the top here and simply drag this out further to make sure that that text fits. And now if I refresh the preview, we'll see in a second it will update here, and that will go straight all the way across there, round robin league, April 1st. So you can see there's a little bit of a benefit to making sure that you check that preview every time. Now let's add something like, say, the tea time. So the tea time for the first group there, let's say, I'm going to call this tea and have the time listed there. And I'm going to put this in a different color to make it stand out. We'll put this in red. Again, this is like a Microsoft Word type view where you can select anything about this, whether it's you want to bold something, italicize it, underline it. You can center it, however you'd like to do it. I'm going to put this tea time in there, and I'm going to put this right here. So this will go on the scorecard for the group. And again, let's preview it. And as that's scrolling up, the next things I want to think about doing here are, remember I highlighted that number 4. You see we've got the tea time up there now. I highlighted that number 4. I want to put a little note about what that means to show someone that there's a beverage station there, for example. So I'm going to put another text field. And it's going to say beverage station featured on tea. And then I'm going to select it all. And I'm going to go to the background color. And I'll say more colors, and we'll pick this yellow one over here to match that up. You'll see what it looks like there. I'll apply the text change. And we'll put it down here so you can see that the highlighted yellow indicates the highlight down here. I could even put a little asterisk there to indicate really what that means, and drag this out to make sure it fits. So just other little things you can do there to make your card look a little better. How about in this case, let's say I have a sponsor and I want to put the sponsor's logo in the background of the card. I can upload a photo, I can choose a file, and I have one on my desktop here, and it's a Miller Lite logo. Let's say Miller Lite is the sponsor of our event here. It's going to upload the logo for us, put it in here, and let's just say, all right, I want to make it maybe a little smaller. I'll drag it in from the corners here if I want to, and put it right in the center. But obviously you can't see that. You see your scores over there, but there is this icon here, this option for photo transparency. I could go through and put that on there. You see we've got a logo in there. This could be any corporate sponsor you have for the event, for the outing, for the league, whatever it might be. And now if I refresh it, we've got a card that has the event name, the date, our primary logo, which in your case a lot of times would be the club logo. We've got a sponsor. We've got an indicator of a special feature like a beverage station. We've got the tea time. We can really add in whatever else we want to here. You can see you can add in lines, dividers, other text fields. The text fields are really any data field you have within the program here. So you have player-related fields, custom fields, round status, a lot of different options here. Any of these you can search for them like I did, or you can just pick them out here. I could also put in a GGID, for example, if people wanted to follow the leaderboard on their own. We could say event GGID and pump this in there and apply that text change, and that'd be another thing that I could put that right over here. And now when people are using the GGID that we've talked about in some of our previous webinars, like for the portals or things like that, the GGID is there, and the players can access that information, especially if it was a live scored event. They'd be able to see that information there. So again, this didn't take long. It's a relatively easy thing to do, but you do control that whole scorecard process, what displays, what doesn't display. And once you get it the way you want it, you can simply save it, and it says settings have been saved. I can also save and print it. That's going to actually go through the process of creating this PDF of the scorecards for these 4 groups. And then if you have the scorecard paper loaded up in your printer, you go ahead and print that out and go. That paper can be purchased through GAP, or if you have your own cardstock to use, the paper through GAP is set up perfectly to work with card signs and scorecards within USGA TM. The perfect size and the perforations and everything are set up, especially with markers, notes, or anything like that. You see the PDFs are up, they're here, you print it out and go. So that's a basic look at a scorecard creation from scratch. Before we move on to Steve talking through some card signs and some scoreboards, Steve, were there any questions that came in?
No questions so far. It looks like Ken Dixon from the Golf Genius team is in the chat but not attentive, so I think you were boring him a little bit.
He knows all about the program, so I don't think we need to focus on Ken right now. But yeah, so that's a basic look at that. Again, Steve's going to take us through the next few report examples, but I'll go ahead and pass it over to him now.
All right, thank you, Mario. I'll just change the view here to show my screen. All right, wonderful. So yeah, so what Mario just walked you through is obviously the scorecards, and scorecards can be accessed in a couple places, either in the rounds menu through the print scorecards option, or since they are reports, they can be accessed through the report center as well. So we're going to go to the report center and talk about some other types of reports and just some ways that you can kind of streamline your reporting process to save you work down the road. I think the good thing here is reports can be daunting for everyone, but typically the same reports are run for every type of event, and then year over year, you're essentially running the same reports for the same type of event. So let's say you run a member guest every year. Typically, you're going to run the same exact reports for the member guests every single year. Obviously, the information will be updated based on who's playing and the tee times and the dates and everything like that. But since we're able to use those dynamic fields of like round date, it'll automatically update with whatever information's in the field. So year over year is one thing, but it's also possible where you could have several similar events all in the same year. So if you're a club that runs a lot of outings, for example, you're probably going to have the same type of reports that you'll want to run for every outing. So what we can do here is we can create different categories in the report center. So again, we have our basic reports, which are deemed by the Golf Genius team, which are just some of your simple reports like tee sheets and card signs, etc. A lot of basic stuff here, but still useful. And then some spreadsheets, the page composer, report composer. We'll touch base on what those are in a second. You have all your scorecards. So we looked, Mario's webinar test here is in there. So it's always, no matter which event that you go in, if you go to scorecards, the Mario webinar test will be here. So if you're ever running a best 2 out of 4, you know that that's set up that way. You know, Miller Lite might not be your sponsor every time, so you can go through and copy it and you know, call it you know, best 2 of 4 new sponsor, and then it keeps all the information. You can go in there, edit it, change out that logo, put in a new logo. So again, really easy on that front. But what I did here is I created a new category called outing reports. So let's say whenever we run an outing, we want to run the same type of reports. We want to run an alpha list for the outside staff, an alpha list plus a T-sheet. We want bag tags for everyone, and then we want a simple scramble scorecard with one team line per player, or one line per team. So to create that category, it's really easy. Go and just create a category. So we can call this, like, let's say the same reports are used for every Sunday game at the club. You can call one Sunday game, and then that will appear in your report center. If you hit this little star, you can bring it to the top. Then the last one that's also important is this event category. So this event is, if you pull reports into this category, if you clone this event in the future, all the reports will filter over as well. So that's perfect for a member guest. If you ran your 2019 member guest and you had 6 reports into this event folder, if you clone it for 2020 and 2021, those reports will come over. And again, reports can be in multiple sections here too, categories. So if we look at our outing reports and we want to put these all into this event folder too, because we're going to clone it for 2022 when the Gap Golf outing happens again, we just click on the category section, hit this event. Bag tags are already in there. And then we go into this event folder and all the reports are there. So again, awesome, because all we have to do is clone it and it'll be the same reports for next year. So again, might be a little bit of work in the early going to make sure you get everything looking really nice at how you want it, but it saves you years down the road of having to do that work over and over and over again. So one of the nice things about the program. The other nice thing too here was with these reports is you can just rapid fire print these. So you can print several reports at the same time, which obviously saves quite a bit of time. This is a fairly new feature within the last couple of years. So how that ends up working, instead of sparing you waiting for that whole time, once a report's done, it has this download PDF. You can just click and download that PDF. Then you can either save it or print it straight from the program here. So again, we had our alpha list. We had our alpha list plus T-sheet. So the T-sheet on top, alpha list on the bottom. We had our bag tags. And then we had our scorecard. So again, didn't really spruce up these too much. Just wanted to show the functionality of how it worked. But if we wanted alpha list, for example, to have bigger font or anything like that, you can always configure it as well. You can put, let's say you always want handicap index and you prefer it landscape instead. Font size you want extra large, but you want check boxes when people show up. You can save that too, so that would be saved for the future. And again, you can kind of curate that to get it to how you want everything to look. So again, when you clone it, this outing comes here next year, you're not doing any reporting work. You're just adding the players, putting them on the T-sheet, and everything else is ready to fire. So the one thing we're missing here that is a very common report for basically any type of event you run is a cart sign. And I want to use this opportunity to show how the community reports work. So this again was released a couple years ago and is a great feature because essentially the thousands of clubs across the country are all using very similar types of reports. And while creating a custom report from scratch is nice, some clubs don't have that ability or time to do that all the time. But there are reports that are shared by other clubs, other associations that can be used for you. So if we click on this community report section, it shows all the reports across that have been shared by users that are now available for any club to use. So you can see there's a handful of scoring options, T-sheets. You can search at top here. So you can do, you type in match play based on what the report's called or has in its title. There's a bunch of match play reports. So here it's a lot of scorecard things. Again, we were missing the cart signs. So we can just type in cart sign, and there's a handful of cart sign reports. Shows a little preview. You can click on the little magnifying glass to make it even bigger. So we can look and see which one we think looks close. So let's say for whatever reason we like this shotgun cart sign one from Blacksburg Country Club and they shared. what we can do is if we click on cat, we can print it straight from the program. If we like how it looks as is, we can do that. Let's say we know we have a couple people that have longer names and maybe this font's going to be a little bit too big and we don't like the color red at the bottom, and maybe we only want one logo, for example. We can still edit this report. So if we click on categories, and again, we can put it in basic reports and, outing reports and this event. We go back to our report center. We put it in outing reports. It's now here in our report center. So we can now edit it. It's a fresh copy. We essentially just copied it. We can even rename it, call it outing cart sign. Yep, outing cart sign. And then again, we edit it. So now we get the edit view, but all the heavy lifting has already been done. So again, I mentioned maybe we just wanted one logo. We can delete the secondary logo. And I mentioned we knew we had some long names. We want to change the size of this. We just come in, instead of 48, we put it, or 72, we put it as 48 and italicize it too. And then center it. And then lastly, maybe our color is green instead of red. Can come in again and just change the color to green. Just refresh the preview for how that would look. There it is, smaller names, italicized, just one logo and a whole number. And then we can save and print that just from there or save it. And again, that's pretty simple, but just to show that functionality. There's, in the community reports, there's, I don't know the exact number, but I think approaching maybe 1,000 or more reports that have been shared by the community. And all these go through a curation process by the USGA. So I guess there's 792 reports. A curation process to make sure a similar report isn't being duplicated, just so that number stays kind of where it needs to be and doesn't swell to too big of a number. And make sure that the structural integrity of those reports are good too. So if you're pulling one of those reports, it means it's been checked and it'll pull the correct information. It has a lot of dynamic pulls instead of the static of just, instead of typing out Gap Golf Outing, it'll have the event name, so it'll update from event to event. So if we head back to our report center, we're feeling pretty good about where our outing reports are. A lot of the basics here. And the last one that maybe we want to do a scoreboard, and we're pretty comfortable with what we saw in the community reports, and maybe we want to pull one of those, but for the sake of this, want to show how to create a report from scratch and kind of how some of the functionality works. So I guess we'll pause first for any questions before we get to a custom report. Doesn't look like we have anything, so we'll continue on. So at the top, you can click on New Document. And there's a handful of different documents that you can choose. So scorecard, spreadsheet, publisher scoreboard, where if you have publisher, those are a pretty easy and efficient way to do scoreboards. Then you have most of the custom reports you're going to do are reports and pages. And just to delineate the difference between those, reports is something like a T-sheet or an alpha list where it doesn't have a defined space. You know, you could have 4 people in an event and it would just show 4 lines, or you could have 100 people and it could be multiple pages. So you don't know exactly how long it's going to be or what type of space it'll take up. A page is something that always has a defined space. So think a cart sign as a page because all the information is going to be in that half sheet of paper. And it's going to change obviously for each group or each pair, but every section is going to be the exact same size. So for something like a scoreboard, we'd want a page because we want every team's area to be the same area. So I click on New Page, we'll call the report, and I'll call it, outing scoreboard. And when you do that, it does search for community reports to see if there's anything that matches that criteria. It looks like there isn't right now. The next is the form. So this is what area you want to define, and there's a handful of options. So for example, if you're doing labels, there's 3 Avery options where it breaks it down by rows and columns. If you were doing a cart sign, you'd have the 2 rows by 1 column. Essentially what that means is the 2 rows, there's that perforation in the middle. Then you have the landscape option where you have 2 rows with 1 column, so 2 rows with 1 column again. So that's not the cart sign example. That's the kind of the landscape example where it's the the hot dog fold of the kind of a scorecard type orientation. So with our scoreboard, we just want to make it one 8.5 by 11 inch page. We want each team to have their own page. For this event, we only have 4 teams, so we want to make it big. And then the last is to print for every, and you choose which group you want to print it for. So if we wanted to print for every player, where if we wanted like a player information sheet, for example, that was 1 page long, we could do player. That would be a good example for bag tags if we wanted to use an Avery label, print for each player and put the player's name in there. For this, we want to print for each foursome because the information is going to change for each foursome. We could also do pairs work too if it was a 2-person scramble or event, but we're going to do foursome. And then where do we want to put it? Let's put it in outing reports in this event. And then we get our blank canvas. So it's automatically going to show how much space we have. And after looking at this, say maybe in the future we think we're going to have more types of events that will have more teams, and this is too big of a space. So we can always change the form too. So let's say I want to do it this landscape form, the 2 rows by 1 column. Again, that's the hot dog fold of the paper here. We see our area is now significantly smaller. So we'll do that. And then very similar to what Mario did with his scorecard example in that last section is you can add any option you would want. So we'll start with the names. So it goes by each player. Since we're doing it per foursome, each player has their unique information. So player 1, player 2, player 3. Let's say we wanted to do a fancy last name where we did their last name, their first initial, and then the remainder, and then comma, oops, I wanted that last name initial, then the remainder, and then follow that with a comma and the player's first name. So that's the information. Again, this, if we did this in the simplest form, it wouldn't look all that good just because it's just Times New Roman, small font, nothing special. If we wanted to spice that up a little bit, let's say we wanted a big first letter, kind of like they do on some PGA Tour events. Do a 48 for the first letter. We'll make the font Cosmic Sans. We'll italicize and bold it and make it red. The last name remainder then is the next field that we can edit, and we can make that maybe a little smaller, 24, and we can make that a different color as well. Can make that gray. And then the last name, or the first name, same thing. Make it a little bit bigger, italicize it, change the font color to blue. Then you can do your club's colors or outing colors or something like that. Click on the apply text change. Again, I'll make this box a little bigger. We'll take a look at the preview too. And there looks a little more fancy there, a little spiced up. But we want to add more players since it's a 4-player team. So what we can do is we can kind of go through that whole process again, where we can go to player 2. I'll hit enter here. We can click on player 2 last name initial, then remainder. But then we'd have to change the fonts and all that stuff. But you'll see the convention is basically the same, except instead of P1, it's just P2 for everything. So what I like doing is just copying this, pasting it 3 times, and then just changing anywhere where it says P1. We'll change it to P2. Again, that's just changing the player's information. And then same thing with 3. And then lastly with 4. Then we apply the text change. Now it's got all that information. We're actually a little too big now. So again, maybe I can go in and it's clearly the that first initial that's causing the issue. So I can cut it down to 36. But that refresh preview, as Mario touched on in his part too, is really important just because it prevents you from having to go back in and downloading it over and over again. You can tell pretty quickly if there's an issue. So now we can fit it all on the one page. So we've got the names there. And then a couple other things we can do. We can add really important, really nice for reports like this is you can add a rectangle. And I'm going to send it to the back just so it's kind of in the background. And we can, just to delineate between the two teams, because 2 teams print per page, we can make this big rectangle around the team. And then another one for score. So add rectangle. So the big one just kind of separates the 2 teams, and then we have one for score, and we can even put in here just some static text of team score. Put that there. For sake of time, won't add other things, but we can, do just, I guess, a really easy one. Go back to the Miller Lite example or the Gap logo. Can put it in that team score area. Can make the transparency really low so you can write over it. And just like that, in just a couple minutes, we have a fairly good looking report. Even put like tea time information in between. A lot of flexibility you can do here. So again, this is again a difficult topic to come up with one from scratch that's feasible and easy. But would like to emphasize that Gap's always here to help. Like I mentioned, once you get your reports in order, it's really easy year over year to replicate that because you're typically going to want the same reports year over year. So it might be a little daunting at the start, and for a user that doesn't have a lot of example or a lot of time with the product, that's where we're happy to come in and help. So do want to emphasize, and we'll again send us out in an email with a recap of all our webinars. But if we go to calendly.com and GapGen, there's a link here for a 30-minute USGA TM or admin portal training. If you would like to schedule time with us, typically it just takes between 30 minutes and an hour to get that report center in order for what you want and get you guys pointed in the right direction. So if you guys need any help with the organization of your report center or creating reports from scratch, great resource just to pick a time that works for you. We can send out a Zoom invite and get everything squared away. So again, it's calendly.com/GapGen. We'll send that link out with a recap of all our webinars, but a great tool to get everything in order. So that's all I had prepared. Mario, did anything come in?
Did not see anything else come in, Steve, but again, feel free to reach out to Steve or I after these are done with any questions about anything that we've gone over in today's session or the previous 3. Again, these will be, the recordings will be posted on our website at gapgolf.org/gap-webinars in the coming days. So if you need to refer back to anything, you can obviously do that. And again, reach out to us. You can email handicapping@gapgolf.org. Actually hits both Steve and I, and we can get you some assistance with whatever you need.